There's a moment in every trader's life when the chart goes silent, your heartbeat gets louder, and you realize the trade you thought would change everything is the same trade that almost ends you. If you've ever stared at your screen wondering how one click could hold so much weight, this story is for you. I never planned for that day to become a turning point. It started like any other session. Same desk, same chair, same hope that maybe today the market would finally reward the discipline I'd been forcing myself to build. But the truth is, discipline is easy to preach and painfully hard to live by when the candles begin to move against you. Every trader has that one trade, the one you remember more than your wins, more than the charts you mastered, more than the setups you thought you understood. Mine wasn't just a losing trade, it was a mirror. It showed me every weakness I tried to hide behind strategy, indicators, and confidence I didn't fully earn. As the price kept falling, I felt something inside me collapse with it. My hands were shaking, my breathing went shallow. I wasn't thinking like a trader anymore. I was thinking like someone trying to escape a mistake that kept getting bigger. Regret is loud, but fear is louder. And right when I thought I was about to lose everything, something shifted. Not in the market, in me. A voice I had ignored for months whispered the one thing I desperately needed to hear. Stop. Breathe. This loss is a lesson disguised as pain. That single moment, that tiny pause, became the line between the trader I was and the trader I would become. This wasn't the end of my journey. It was the beginning of a new one. One built on awareness, patience, and the realization that the charts don't break you. You break yourself when you stop learning. So before we go into the heart of this story, the mistakes, the turning point, the breakthrough, remember this: sometimes the trade that almost destroys you is the same one that rebuilds you from the inside out. If you're ready, let's begin. 1. The beginning of the fall. I still remember the exact atmosphere of that morning, the kind of quiet that feels almost staged, like the world was holding its breath for what was about to happen. My coffee was still warm, my journal open beside me, and my setup looked perfect. The chart had formed a clean structure, the type traders dream of. Every signal pointed in one direction, and in my mind, it wasn't just a good trade, it was the trade. I entered with confidence, maybe too much confidence, and for a few seconds, everything looked right. The candle moved in my favor, slowly, almost teasingly. I felt that familiar spark of validation, the one that tells you, see, you're improving, you're finally getting it right. But markets have a cruel sense of timing. The moment you let your guard down, they remind you who's really in control. It started with a tiny wick, just a small rejection, nothing alarming, but the next candle opened with a force I didn't expect. It pushed against my position, not violently, but steadily, the kind of movement that makes you doubt if you truly understood the setup at all. Still, I stayed. I told myself, it's just noise. But the noise grew louder. The chart dipped again, then again. Each drop felt like a heartbeat skipping in my chest. I tightened my grip on my phone. I zoomed out. I zoomed in. I searched for any sign, any clue, that the market was bluffing. But the truth was simple. I wasn't analyzing anymore. I was hoping. Hope is beautiful in life, but deadly in trading. Yet I held on, not because the setup was still valid, but because letting go felt like admitting I misread everything. My ego was trading now, not my strategy. Then came the candle that shattered the illusion. A strong, decisive move straight against me, slicing through my stop zone like it wasn't even there. In that moment, I froze. My eyes didn't blink. My mind stopped thinking. I wasn't watching a chart. I was watching my confidence leak away with every tick. And still, I didn't close the trade. Not yet. Because there's a strange moment every trader faces. A moment when the loss becomes big enough to hurt, but not big enough to teach you the lesson fully. So you cling to the pain, hoping it'll reverse before your heart does. But deep inside, I already knew. This wasn't a bad trade. This was a bad version of me trading. As the candle approached the point of no return, I felt the weight of my decisions press against my chest. It wasn't the loss that scared me. It was the realization that I had ignored all the signs telling me to stop. And that's when everything truly began to unravel. 2. When panic takes the wheel. The moment the chart broke past my final safety level, something inside me snapped, not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, like a thread pulled too tight for too long. My breathing changed, my posture collapsed, and suddenly, I wasn't the trader who started the session with confidence. I was someone trying to outrun a mistake that kept growing faster than I could think. My screen felt brighter, harsher. Every candle seemed to move twice as fast. My mind split into two voices, one whispering, "Cut it, save yourself," and the other insisting, "Hold on, it might bounce, you can still fix this." But both voices were wrong, because neither of them came from discipline, they came from fear, and fear doesn't negotiate with logic. I clicked through time frames, desperately searching for a reason, any reason, to justify staying in the trade. A hidden support zone, a trend line I might have missed, a pattern that magically appeared now, but wasn't there earlier. But the truth was painfully clear. I wasn't analyzing anymore. I was begging the market for mercy. The candles didn't care. Each drop felt personal, like the market was peeling away every illusion I had about control. My hands grew cold. My mouth felt dry. My chest tightened, as if someone was slowly pressing down on it. Suddenly, trading didn't feel like charts and setups. It felt like survival. I hovered my cursor over the close button, twice, 3 times, but I couldn't click, not because I believed it would reverse, but because closing meant accepting I caused this mess, accepting that one moment of arrogance, one moment of ignoring my rules, had led me here. Then came the emotional spiral, the one every trader knows but never admits. Why did I enter so big? Why didn't I follow my plan? Why can't I just trade like a normal person today? Questions with answers I already knew. Answers that hurt more than the loss itself. My heart raced. My foot tapped uncontrollably beneath the desk. Thought after thought crashed into me, until I wasn't even watching the chart anymore. Just the number in red getting larger, louder, heavier. That's when the panic truly took control. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind. The quiet kind. The one that whispers. Maybe one more candle, maybe just a little longer, but deep inside, beneath all the fear and denial, I felt something else, a thin line of truth struggling to break through, a realization forming slowly, painfully. This wasn't about the money anymore. This was about me losing the battle with myself. And until I faced that truth, the chart would keep teaching me the same lesson, only harder each time. 3. The breaking point. There's a moment in every downward spiral when the loss stops feeling like numbers and starts feeling like identity. That's where I found myself stuck between who I thought I was as a trader and who the market was exposing me to be. The chart kept pushing against me, bleeding deeper into red, but the real battle wasn't on the screen anymore. It was inside me. My mind tried to process everything at once. The fear of losing more, the shame of breaking my rules, the frustration of knowing I had seen the warning signs and still ignored them. It was like drowning in thoughts that refused to let me breathe. And yet, I stayed in the trade. My finger hovered uselessly over the exit button, but my ego held my hand still. I kept telling myself, just wait, just a small retracement. But the market wasn't giving me a retracement. It was giving me a lesson I didn't want to learn. Every tick against me felt like a reminder of every undisciplined habit I thought I had outgrown. Every candle felt like a slow unraveling of months of progress. Every second was a quiet confession. You didn't lose the trade. You lost yourself. My chest tightened with a weight that had nothing to do with money. It was the weight of realization, a heavy, suffocating truth pressing down harder with each move of the chart. I felt angry at the market, angry at myself, angry at the illusion that I was in control. And then something unexpected happened. The chart paused. A small candle formed, a tiny flicker of hope. For a split second, I felt relief. I convinced myself it was the beginning of a reversal, the chance to escape without too much damage. I leaned forward, waiting for confirmation, praying silently for the market to give me a second chance. But that little candle was a setup, not for a reversal, for the final drop. The next candle opened like a guillotine, sharp, fast, brutal. It sliced through my last support and plunged deeper than I ever imagined. My heart dropped with it. There was no denying it anymore. No excuses. No pretending. This was the moment everything fell apart. A wave of emotions crashed into me. Shame, regret, disbelief. I felt small, powerless, exposed. The chart didn't just break my position. It broke the version of me that thought discipline was optional. My hand finally moved. Slowly, reluctantly, defeated. I clicked close. The screen froze for a half a second, but that small delay felt like an eternity. When the numbers updated, my breath left my body. The loss was bigger than anything I had planned for, bigger than anything I had mentally prepared myself to handle. And in that quiet, painful stillness, I realized something. The trade wasn't the breaking point. I was. And until I faced that truth, I would keep repeating the same mistakes, no matter how good the setup looked. 4. The quiet after the collapse. When I finally closed the trade, the silence in the room felt unreal, too heavy, too sharp, too loud, the kind of silence that doesn't comfort you, but exposes you. My screen dimmed slightly, as if even the monitor was tired of watching me spiral. The numbers stopped moving. The chart calmed, but inside me everything was still crashing. I leaned back in my chair, not because I wanted to, but because I couldn't hold myself upright anymore. My body felt drained, like the loss had been pulled directly from my chest instead of my account. My hands slid away from my phone, trembling, not from the money I lost, but from the realization of how easily I abandoned the discipline I worked so hard to build. It wasn't just a losing trade, it was a reflection, a mirror showing me the version of myself I didn't want to admit still existed. The emotional trader, the impulsive one, the one who froze when it mattered most, the one who thought experience alone could replace discipline. I looked at the number again. The loss was real, unchangeable, but the worst part wasn't the number, it was the story behind it, the story of hesitation, denial, pride, and fear. I knew exactly where I went wrong, every decision that led me there, every rule I broke trying to protect my ego. But now that it was over, all I had left was the quiet, a quiet that made me ask questions I avoided for too long. Why am I still doing this wrong? Why do I repeat patterns I swore I outgrew? What part of me still sabotaging my progress? The room felt colder. Even the ticking of the clock seemed judgmental. I lowered my gaze to the journal beside me. Still open, still waiting, untouched since the moment I entered the trade. The pen lay across the page like a reminder that I didn't document anything. Not my reasoning, not my emotions, not the shift in my mindset. Maybe because a part of me knew, if I wrote it down, I'd have to confront the truth. I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of the moment settle on my shoulders. Losses hurt, but self-awareness hurts deeper. This wasn't a financial collapse. It was an emotional one, a crack in the foundation I thought was solid. Slowly, I reached for the journal, not to write yet, but to face the fact that this moment needed to be captured, studied, remembered. If I didn't, the market would teach me the same lesson again, and it would hurt even more next time. I stared at the blank page, my thoughts heavy but clear. This wasn't the end of my journey. This was the moment I had to decide whether to run from the pain or learn from it. The loss had already taken enough from me. I couldn't let it take the lesson too. So I took a breath, slow, deep, steady, and for the first time since the spiral began, I felt the smallest shift inside me. Not relief, not acceptance, but readiness. Readiness to face the truth, to understand it, to grow from it. The collapse had passed. Now came the quiet, and the decision of who I would become after it. 5. The lesson hidden in the wreckage. I stared at the blank page of my journal for a long time, longer than I'd like to admit. It felt like the paper was waiting for me to be honest, waiting for me to put into words the very thing I'd been avoiding since I clicked the buy button. My pen hovered over the page, but my mind kept replaying the trade like a broken film reel I couldn't turn off. Every mistake flashed in painful detail. The hesitation, the denial, the pride masquerading as confidence. Each moment carried its own weight, asking the same question. Why did you abandon who you're trying to become? Eventually, I forced myself to write, Not perfectly, not poetically, just truthfully. The first line felt like ripping off a bandage. I didn't lose to the market. I lost to myself. As soon as the words hit the page, something shifted. The story stopped being about the loss and started being about the pattern. For the first time, I wasn't documenting candles or price levels. I was documenting me, my emotions, my impulses, the silent fears that guided my decisions without my permission. Line after line, the truth spilled out. I wrote about how the initial confidence blinded me, how I ignored my plan because I wanted to be right more than I wanted to be disciplined. I wrote about the moment panic took over, the heartbeat rising, the fingers shaking, the irrational hope that somehow the market would reverse just to spare me from facing my own weakness. It hurt to write, but it hurt in a way that felt necessary, because with every sentence, I wasn't just reliving the mistake, I was understanding it. And understanding is the first step toward breaking the cycle. Somewhere in the middle of the page, I wrote something that stopped me cold, something my future self would need to remember. A loss isn't failure, refusing to learn from, it is. For a moment, I just stared at that line. The room felt still. The pain didn't feel as loud. It was as if the lesson I had been avoiding finally stepped forward, no longer hiding behind the red numbers or the shame of a bad decision. The market didn't destroy me today. It exposed the part of me that needed to be rebuilt. And in the quiet realization of that truth, I felt something unexpected. Not relief, not comfort, but clarity. The loss wasn't a dead end. It was a doorway, a chance to step into a better version of myself, one that didn't cling to ego or fear, one that didn't rely on luck or wishful thinking, a version that could look at pain and say, I will not run, I will learn. As I closed the journal, I noticed my hands had stopped shaking. The room didn't feel hostile anymore. My breathing felt steady. The wreckage was still there, but now I could finally see the lesson buried beneath it. And for the first time since the trade collapsed, I felt like I was moving forward, slowly, but intentionally. 6. Rebuilding the trader within. The next morning, the loss was still there, unchanged, unapologetic, but something inside me wasn't the same anymore. I woke up with a heaviness, not just from the money gone, but from the truth I uncovered the night before. Losing hurts, but seeing yourself clearly hurts more. Still, clarity does something strange to a person. It doesn't comfort you, but it pushes you. I sat at my desk again, the same place where everything had fallen apart. But this time, I didn't look at the charts. I looked at myself reflected faintly in the dark screen. The tired eyes, the drained posture, the quiet determination forming underneath all the regret. I realized something important. Every trader wants progress, but few want to face the version of themselves that prevents it. And yesterday, I met mine. Slowly, I opened my journal again, not to relive the pain, but to rebuild from it. I wrote down not just what I did wrong, but what I needed to become. Not the perfect trader, not the emotionless one, but the disciplined one. The one who doesn't fight the market, but fights the impulses that sabotage the journey. I listed the rules I broke. Then I wrote the reasons behind each break. The honesty felt uncomfortable, like shining a flashlight into corners I'd ignored for months. But it was also freeing, like finally cleaning out a wound instead of pretending it wasn't there. For the first time, I wasn't trying to erase the loss. I was trying to understand the person who created it. That's when a new realization bloomed inside me. The market isn't my enemy. My undisciplined self is. So I made a promise. Not dramatic, not emotional, just sincere. A promise to respect my stop loss the same way I respect my dreams. A promise to trade with intention, not impulse. A promise to choose patience over pride, clarity over chaos, reflection over reaction. Because trading isn't about mastering charts, it's about mastering yourself. The charts eventually lit up again as I powered on the screen, but I didn't rush into another trade. I wasn't here to win back what I lost. That version of me had already caused enough damage. I was here to rebuild, with steady hands, clear eyes, and a mindset shaped not by victory, but by awareness. For a moment, I just watched the candles move. No pressure, no urgency, just observation. It felt like meeting the market as a new person, someone who didn't need revenge, someone who didn't need validation, someone learning how to trade with intention, not emotion. And in that calm moment, I understood something powerful. The trade that almost destroyed me might be the very trade that saves me, not by making me profit, but by forcing me to transform. Pain had done its job. Now discipline would take over. 7. Becoming the trader I was meant to be. Days passed, and the loss slowly shifted from feeling like a wound to feeling like a reminder, not a punishment, not a scar to hide, but a quiet voice guiding me toward the trader I wanted to become. I didn't rush into new setups. I didn't chase volatility. I didn't look for a comeback trade. I focused on rebuilding the one thing I had neglected for too long, my foundation. Each morning, I reviewed my journal, not with shame, but with curiosity. I reread the lines where my emotions hijacked my logic, where my pride disguised itself as confidence, where fear pretended to be patience, and slowly, those entries stopped feeling like failures and started feeling like blueprints. Blueprints for a better version of me. I refined my rules, tightened my risk, redefined what a good trade truly meant. A good trade wasn't a winning one anymore. A good trade was one where I honored my plan, where I acted with clarity instead of craving validation. As days turned into weeks, something inside me grew steadier. My entries became calmer. My exits became cleaner. My decisions no longer came from hope or fear. They came from intention. And the more I respected my plan, the more the market respected me. It wasn't perfection, but it was progress. The kind of progress that only comes after breaking apart and rebuilding stronger. One evening, as I reviewed a trade I executed flawlessly, not because it won, but because I followed every rule, I felt a realization settle in. The market didn't change. I did. The loss that once crushed me had become the turning point that shaped me. The pain had forged discipline. The mistake had built awareness. The breakdown had revealed the path forward. That's when I understood the truth every trader eventually learns, though some learn it the hard way. You don't grow when you avoid pain. You grow when you let pain teach you. I closed my journal with a calm I hadn't felt in months. For the first time, I wasn't chasing success. I was becoming the kind of person who creates it consistently. One choice, one habit, one disciplined moment at a time. And as I looked at the chart glowing softly in front of me, I felt something powerful. I was no longer afraid of losing. I was afraid of going back to who I was before the loss, because now I knew that the version of me who panicked, who begged the market for mercy, who traded from emotion instead of structure, that wasn't the real me. That was the unrefined version, the beginning, the raw material. And this journey, this painful, necessary journey, had shaped me into something stronger, the trader I was meant to be. If you've made it this far, then maybe, just maybe, you felt what I felt. The fear, the doubt, the pain of watching a single decision unravel everything you thought you had under control. But here's the truth I learned it somewhere between the loss and the lesson. Trading isn't a path you walk once. It's a path you rebuild every single day. Every mistake shapes you. Every setback sharpens you. Every painful moment reveals a weakness you're meant to transform into strength. The trade that almost destroyed me didn't end my journey. It cleared the fog I didn't realize I was walking through. It forced me to face the version of myself that had been quietly sabotaging my progress. And it guided me toward the trader I was meant to become. And if you're watching this, maybe you're standing at your own turning point too. Maybe you just faced a loss that feels heavier than the numbers show. Maybe you're questioning your path, your discipline, or even your future in this game. Or maybe you're finally realizing that trading isn't about fighting the market. It's about understanding yourself. If that's you, breathe, reflect, and remember, the market doesn't break you. It reveals you. Your job is to decide who you become after that revelation. So if this story hit you, inspired you, or simply reminded you that you're not alone in this journey, then do me a favor, hit that like button, not for the algorithm, but to remind yourself that you're choosing growth. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that setbacks aren't endings, they're beginnings in disguise. And if you want more stories, more lessons, more raw honesty about the trader's journey, subscribe to the channel, and join me as we grow, one disciplined step at a time. This isn't just a story, it's a reminder that even at your lowest point, you're still one decision away from rebuilding everything. And trust me, your comeback story hasn't even started yet.